I think now all I'm doing is speaking to large institutions about investing. So I think the ongoing investment thesis continues. And I think that the central banks will be more dovish than people expect going forwards. So we should have a longer cycle with more tailwinds than most people expect right now. We will have millions of different needs and use cases for millions of different things. Which ones survive is like any business. Which network survives? It depends whether people believe in it, they find utility from it and value from it. If that is the case, it can survive. But we don't know where this is going.
Yep.
So I'm not thinking of it in any way as an investor in my long-term horizon, apart from the fact that it's probably, whatever it is, $2 trillion today, and it probably goes to $200 trillion. How that's composed in the future, I have no idea. But what I know is where it's going and why it's going there, because to create the internet of value, which is distributed, giving ownership back to the individual away from giant corporations, is something that the whole space is building towards. So that philosophy, everybody shares, which is interesting, versus the specific philosophies of different protocols.
So what do you think are the characteristics? We don't know what the winning chain might look like, let's assume that. But what do you think of the characteristics of 10 years down the line of what kind of a winning public blockchain looks like to enable that transfer of digital ownership?
I don't believe in a winning blockchain. I think it shifts over time. I believe in interoperability and the fact that we will choose to trade off. Let's say we want to give out some NFTs to Real Vision users. Now, we might not use Ethereum because it's going to cost us $250 to mint. So maybe we use another chain. But if it's interoperable, you can then store it in your Ethereum wallet. Again, I think we're so used to the monopolistic tendencies of large corporations who can create moats that we forget that this is almost the opposite, and we don't know what the outcomes are, and that's half the excitement of the space, is not knowing. We can use Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, whatever we want, interoperably for different purposes. That's going to create a whole new hybrid structure of opportunities that we just don't have today, which is interesting. Yeah. I kind of think that each individual network has its narratives and sub-narratives. If that narrative is attractive enough to enough people, it will grow as a network. And if it's not attractive, it won't grow as a network. So Shiba Inu is unlikely to grow as a network over time unless it has a network utility, which it currently doesn't have. So in which case, interest dies over time. So it's the same if somebody sees something as too centralized and the crowd, the hive mind of people involved in this, decide that that's not what they want. They will migrate to a chain that has more decentralization. So again, I don't think it's up to us to say, but we can choose the ecosystem we want. So I choose to be a more active participant in the Ethereum ecosystem because of how it treats its network participants, which is less combative than those in the Bitcoin ecosystem. That will change over time too. Narrative shift, people shifts, that kind of stuff. But, I think we tend to coalesce around places, networks that we feel suit our needs. And if the market decides that decentralization, the ultimate decentralization is the need, they will coalesce around Bitcoin. If they don't, they won't. So the macro environment is, I think, why we're seeing volatility right now is the shift of narratives. Markets don't like that shift. So the narrative was the inflation shift. The inflation shift last year, I think what happened is inflation was real and inflation destroyed marginal spending and marginal investing. And I think we've seen it in meme stocks. We've seen it across the market. We've seen it in cryptocurrencies where the marginal investor got marginalized because they didn't have enough money. So I think that was one of the features of what happened. And the bond market was pricing in some more inflation, but not a great deal. However, that narrative is shifting. All the forward-looking indicators I look at look like both growth and inflation are slow much faster than the market expects. So then they're struggling to think, how do we price growth equities? How do we price other types of equities in that shifting environment? Because we're going to have a period of time where growth is slowing and inflation is going to look high, and then inflation follows because inflation lags.
Before we continue, help us clicking that YouTube like button and subscribe now to our channel. This shows the algorithm that you valued this information. And it helps us spread that message. Sharing is caring. And now, let's continue.
So I think we're at a shift. My general view, and I've held this for a while now, is that the central banks are more likely to get away with one hike, two hikes max, before they're looking at stimulative measures again. Because I don't think the economy has got traction, and we don't know what the true traction is of the economy until maybe 2 years, 3 years after the pandemic recession has followed through. That's very typical of every recession I've ever followed, is basically there is a growth slowdown that comes fast afterwards. The market panics, starts talking about recession again. Usually that doesn't happen. There's generally more stimulus. So I think it's very supportive of crypto prices overall. I think crypto's gone through that transition phase. We saw the marginal spending, investing in crypto go down. I think now all I'm doing is speaking to large institutions about investing. So I think the ongoing investment thesis continues. And I think that the central banks will be more dovish than people expect going forwards. So we should have a longer cycle with more tailwinds than most people expect right now. Look, everything is a risk curve. Every single part of the investable universe, and crypto is part of that risk curve. Sometimes it's correlated, sometimes it's not. When you go to a macro shift, everything gets a correlation of 1.
Right.
And we've seen that. So it periodically correlates and periodically decouples, depending where we're on the risk curve. It tends to be really decoupled in that mid-cycle phase where growth is okay, central bank policy is loose, crypto does its own thing. But it's when people are having to bring cash back, let's say you're a hedge fund, you've now got a mandate to invest in crypto, you've got your equity position blowing up, you need to reduce risk, the risk manager taps, as volatility rises, VAR means you reduce your portfolio risk, so you're selling crypto, even though you don't want to. It's a function of risk markets. We won't get around that ever, because everything is the same, unless it's got no mark to market, which is why people like VC and people like real estate, because there's no real-time mark to market. But I think the correlation, crypto looks more like a currency in terms of its correlation, which is known as Bayesian in distribution, which means it has passing correlations that shift always. And crypto does that because it's correlated to the bond market, it's correlated to the equity market, it's correlated to something else. And it comes and goes, and sometimes zero correlation. And that's very typical of currencies. People think currencies are interest rate differentials and stuff like that. Virtually no correlation to that at all.
Do you want to know one thing about crypto? I made over 3000% in profit in a few weeks. Fact is, the traditional financial system, the traditional money system makes you poor, not rich. If you want to earn $500,000, $1 million, you have to wait until you're 50, 60, 70 in the traditional financial system, and you probably will still be broke. And you will be old. This is not a sexy combination, as you can imagine. But the question is, how can you start in crypto and make these profits? Where to invest? Where to start? My name is Gunnar and I'm from Germany, as you can hear, and things are a little bit different in Germany. More about that later on. Fact is, there are lots of different cryptocurrencies. It's a gigantic universe where beginners and professionals get easily lost. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. There are 7 key steps you need to follow to become successful in this market. You have to know them, and if you fail one of them, it's literally impossible to succeed in this market. Just an example, one of the key points is your exchange, and one of the biggest are, for example, Binance and Coinbase. These are trusted and well-established exchanges, but, and this is a big but, you won't find the super profitable coins on those exchanges. The unknown super profitable coins that get gigantic profits are not traded on those kind of exchanges. They are traded on much smaller insider platforms that are barely known. And I can tell you what those super secret exchanges are and why they are so profitable. And another super important thing are the right information sources. The point is, the internet is gigantic. There are hundreds and hundreds of YouTube channels, blogs, pages, and much more. And there are also market makers and influencers. For example, Elon Musk, he is not a crypto guy, but the moment he recommended Dogecoin, it went through the roof, to the moon, so to say. But why did he recommend it? Where did he hear it from? He didn't hear it from newspapers. And believe me, he is listening to someone. But you have to know who, and you have to react before he is reacting. This is really, really important. And these are only 2 of the 7 steps you have to follow in order to be successful in crypto. And if you want to know all of these steps in much more detail, and if you want to have a comprehensive checklist, here's what you should do. There is a link below this video. Click on this link and you will get the opportunity to subscribe to my channel. Click on the link and you will see a video where I explain the next steps. So see you soon. Click on the link now. I'll see you there.